What up, what up, what up, what up? It's your boy P. Skip. Welcome to the best half hour of your entire Tuesday. You know what time it is. It's time to get into his course. My squad with me, T-Mac.
Hola.
Chili Will.
Gracias, amigo.
Let's do this. Proverbs 29 and 18 in the Amplified says this: where there is no vision, no revelation of God and his word, the people are unrestrained, but happy and blessed is he who keeps the law of God. I'm gonna read another scripture. 1 Peter 1, 15 through 16 in the Amplified says this: but like the Holy One who called you, be yourselves in all your conduct, be set apart from the world by your godly character and your moral courage. Because as it is written, you shall be holy, set apart, for I am holy. And finally, Ephesians 5 and 5 says this: for be sure of this, no immoral, impure, or greedy person, for that one is in effect an idolater, has any inheritance in the kingdom of Christ and God. For such a person places a higher value on something other than God. Now, I read that because in the wake of the Boston head coach Ime Udoka and Phoenix Suns and Mercury owner Robert Sarver issues, the NBA or Adam Silver is implementing reporting systems for misconduct, harassment, and unprofessional behavior within the NBA and NBA staff and front office staff. So you now want to put stuff in place for people to be able to tell, hey, dude ain't right. These folks ain't right. When this stuff should have been in place a long time ago. They've been doing stuff like this for years. And the only reason that you're doing anything is because now the social media and it's gotten out and people are calling for some sort of change, some sort of resolve, some sort of implementation to make these people be held accountable. Because up until now, and y'all know it, the owners were untouchable. Whatever they wanted to do, whenever they wanted to do it, they could get away with it because they were owners, it was their game, and they were making the rules. And now that you're implementing social media and people are recording stuff and it's getting out, now the brand is starting to look bad and you want to do something about it now. But, I think about what the Bible says. It's like, listen, morals and you being immoral, that kind of stuff will keep you out of the kingdom of heaven. But in basketball terms, it'll keep you out of a championship. Because I'm not seeing, as good as Boston is, without Udoka, I'm not seeing them winning the championship. And let me say this. If they were really that upset with Udoka, why didn't they fire him? Why didn't they fire him? I think the only reason they didn't fire him is because they knew the minute they fired him, Brooklyn was getting him. The minute they fired him, the Brooklyn Nets was going after him. But you know what? I'll let you. What do you think about them now implementing, quote unquote, a procedure to be able to, I don't know if it's anonymous or what, but they're implementing a procedure for you to be able to tell, hey, stuff ain't right. But the question is, okay, I can tell, but I have told. I've told owners, I told people different things and what has happened. My question is, and maybe I'm gonna open this up. When I tell, first of all, what do you think about the ability to tell? But second of all, what is going to be the repercussions of me telling? Because there's been different people who have been fired for telling what's been going on in different organizations. So go ahead, Will, I'll let you in on this one.
Too much, too little, too late. Never try again.
Pretty much. I feel that same way.
Hey, this is one of those things where, what's disappointing about this is that, right is right and wrong is wrong.
Mhm.
And it has nothing to do with who's looking. It has nothing to do with if you get caught or not. You know it's wrong, you know it's right when you're doing it. My godfather, Mr. Herbert Matthews, bless his soul, told me when I was a little bitty kid, he said 99% of the time when a person is wrong, they know it.
Yep. Yep.
They know it. He said 99%
Absolutely.
of the time. Now, when he was saying that and I was a little bitty kid, I didn't really know what he was saying. But he right. These people know what they doing is wrong. They know how they treating people is wrong. They know firing folks and making them do stuff and all this. They know that's wrong. But guess what? There's nobody that can stop them. And even now with this procedure that they're talking about, they're going to figure out a way to leverage their power, because this is a power thing.
Of course.
To leverage their power and the economic value that they bring to individuals, families, and lives, and say, hey, if you don't dance to the type of music we playing, then you got to get out the party. And I don't think it's going to change that much. I really don't. If they wanted to change, I don't think implementing stuff and putting stuff in place. I think that Skip and Tim and Will, as leaders of whatever organization, can say, hey, this is not tolerated under my watch, period. We don't need y'all come tell us what to do. We can do it on our own. You know, the catchphrase, when I first became an elected official, the catchphrase and everything that everybody was talking about was diversity. Oh, diversity, diversity. Diversity is something that the owners can change tomorrow morning because they the owners.
Absolutely.
So all of this right here shouldn't take the commissioner of the NBA to come in and make somebody do the right thing. You should be able to do the right thing on your own. You know you're wrong. Quit behaving that way. Quit acting that way. Treat people with dignity and respect. That's my take on it. I think Alan Silvers just feel like, well, I got to act like I'm doing something. So I'm going to put all these steps in place so it can look like we got something in place. It's a paper lion, y'all. It ain't real. Those things been in place before and nobody has benefited from it until the camera came out.
Right. T-Mac.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the comments, both of you gentlemen have made, I think are, spot on with regards to the reason as to why it has come out. The brand has taken a couple, hits to its, otherwise pristine reputation, and that the owners ultimately are the ones that are going to be most responsible for the actual impact that this particular policy, has ultimately. That said, I think, though, it is a good measure because you want to be able to improve upon some things. Just because something hadn't been done before, if you get some new information or circumstances change, it's good to move in a direction that is more appropriate than the previous position that one has held. So I think that it is good in light of these increasing incidents of egregious behavior by owners and those in power, those in executive leadership. I was at a conference recently, a shout out to NAMAC, National Association of Minority Contractors, Wisconsin, and they were talking about this whole diversity piece and how to, get more diverse contractors and businesses in on some of these high level development contracts, both with horizontal road building as well as vertical building. And one of the panelists said on the panel, hey man, pure and simple, owners dictate whether we meet the standards or not because they are the owners. Same thing in this particular instance, the owners have to have an attitude of zero tolerance for certain types of behavior, and it has to have equity across the board. Now, if you have a culture where you turn the other cheek or gave a nod and a wink to the breaching of company or organizational policies, don't cherry pick who you enforce that with. If the culture says, hey man, I know on page 5, section 8, paragraph 3, it prohibits XYZ, but if you're doing that, man, ain't nobody gonna do anything. And then all of a sudden you have somebody else that does it. Now you want to be Mr. Enforcer. That's not cool, and that's gonna undermine this enforcement piece. But I think if the owners have a collective understanding of, hey, although we are the owners, we're the big time billionaires, big bank take little bank. The players ain't really got nothing. They're millionaires, but we're billionaires. They
Right.
can't do anything. And because we are a non-profit organization, a 501c3 as the league, nobody can come in and really force our hand ultimately. And if they want to go tit for tat, we can definitely pay for the best legal teams in the world to fight and defend us against anything that comes about. Now, with that, though, I think that in corporate America, non-professional sports, there has been these increasing whistleblower provisions that have been, in the mix and have been increasingly on the books of major corporations. I think the NBA is trying to follow suit, saying, hey, it's not unusual or unprecedented that an established enterprise such as the NBA can have these kind of provisions. We might have been a little late to the party, but we're here now. And with regards to public persuasion, you still want butts in seats. And so while folks might, be able to stomach certain things here and there, if it grows to be problematic, it could affect the bottom line with folks choosing not to come to as many games because you have these, offenses that have been taking place. So I think that Adam Silver might be in a proactive type of way to say, hey, look, this is a public relations damage control situation.
Exactly.
And we'll put it, you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
We'll try and put as much teeth to it as we can. But even if we can't, the optics look much better than the alternative, which is us doing absolutely nothing, almost looking like we're co-signing on this foolishness.
Let me just add something, Tim, because you touched on a lot of very important points. And I just want to add this because I think this is important to say. We're not talking about all of the owners. We're not talking about all of the organizations. Some organizations and their owners do things respectable. They do things top notch. They do things first class. We're not talking about the whole NBA and all of the owners. We're talking about the ones that operate in this fashion, who have operated in this fashion in the past, and we want to weed them out.
The bad apples.
Yes.
But even with that, and I think about construction because I spent like 10 years in the construction industry. And a lot of these organizations, when you're building $500 million buildings and edifices, minorities don't get into it until the crumbs of it. The $250 million, the main part, that's already given away 10 years before the actual bids come out. And those are bids for, you can have 100,000, you can have 500,000, you can have $1 million, but that big chunk, the main contractor, that's done way before all that other stuff is out there. And so it's not ever going to be, well, let me say this. It hasn't been in the city of Milwaukee up till now equal. It has not been. And
that's not the city of Milwaukee, excuse me. That's the whole country. It ain't equal nowhere.
Right. But I can only speak about what I know.
Okay.
I know in the city of Milwaukee, it has not been fair. And they were, for instance, it was Miller Park before, but now it's AmFam Field. I worked there. And I know that the main contractor was out of Indiana. So you mean that tell me we had no local contractors that could have done it? That could have been the main general contractor of the of building AmFam? We could have, but you had already made a handshake deal with somebody. You had already said, this is what we're doing before the bids even came out. You can be the general contractor. So that means of this 500 million, you're going to get 3 of it. Now we'll hand out, or you're going to get 4 of it. Now we'll hand out the other 100 million to local people or to small businesses. If you're a small business and you're normally only making 200,000 and they hand you $1 million contract, oh, we in there now. You're like, oh, we got a big chunk of this thing, not knowing you didn't. But that's not advertised and it's not across the board. So everybody has an equal shot at that contract.
if I can just jump in on there, Pascal, you're exactly right with all of that, particularly on the legacy of how it has been up until this point for the most part. Some of the ways that that is attempting to be mitigated is that some of these larger multi-$100 million facilities that are being built, particularly those that receive any sort of municipal or state funding, they are increasingly trying to build in a provision that says X amount of these dollars have to go to minority contractors. And if you want to get specifically Black, because minority can be diluted into anybody that's non-white, white woman, you know, Asian joker, people that, you know, are left-handed, but only use the thumb and the ring finger, you know, but there have been some progress that has been made. Matter of fact, a brother by the name of Don Peoples is right now in the process of getting his licenses to build the tallest structure in New York City. And he's African-American, also billionaire, has, you know, several structures, you know, throughout the country doing some of the same thing. But it also requires some political will, similar to what Maynard Jackson did as the former mayor of Atlanta, may you rest in peace, the late great Maynard Jackson, when they were extending Hartsfield Jackson Airport, the largest airport based on traffic and volume in the country. He put mandates in saying, hey, this amount of contract have to go to Black contractors because of the historical leaving out of us, the exclusion. Now we want to have this kind of inclusion. Now, it was a price that he paid. Most of the time when you leave politics, you can go into private practice. He was a lawyer by trade and profession as well. None of the major white shoe law firms, silk stocking law firms, hired him, but he did it for the culture, and he was reelected again. And because of that, when the Olympics came to Atlanta in 1996, many of those Black firms had in their portfolio, hey, we've done work on the airport, we've done work here, so we can take on these other projects that came with the 96 Olympics. Many of those structures are still in Atlanta, part of their cityscape even now. And so there is a way around it, but you know, there's no doubt the historical legacy has been, hey, if you're Black, get back and get out. But now that there's some, you know, progress, you know, being made, even in some regards, if it's even at a glacial pace, it's still better than it was. Last piece I'll say, and I'll hush, is the fact that if I'm a smaller contractor, if you do give me something that's too big for me, if I'm used to getting $100,000 contracts, $200,000 contracts, that's what my capacity is. I might not be able to take on $150 million contract because I'm going from 200,000 to 150 million. That might crush me. But what I can do, I can partner up with Henderson Construction and Wade Construction, and we can go at this thing together, and our combined girth might be able to get us higher up in the capacity piece. In the meantime, if you throwing me a $500,000 contract or another $200,000 contract, hey man, that is in my wheelhouse, and that's double what my revenue is. So that's still nothing to sneeze at for me. My job is to have a vision and ambition to say, I'm not going to stay at this level. I'm going to go ahead and continue an upward trajectory and take what I can when I can, with the expectation that I'm going to do grade A work, and I'm going to eventually get to those bigger dollar amounts.
Let me just kind of get us back on track, because we done went all off on something different. We done got talking about buildings and all that. And both of you guys know that, you know, y'all know my history, and y'all know that's right in my wheelhouse. I mean, I've been on both sides of it, all three sides of it, really, from workforce to legislative to funding. The whole thing is right in my wheelhouse. I mean, I could talk about this for days, really. But let's get back to basketball.
Well, the thing about this show is that it's so good. You know what I'm saying? We're not one dimensional. We can go ahead and color outside the lines every once in a while. But thank you for bringing us back in on that elasticity. Bringing us back.
Well, all three of us are very passionate individuals. So when we start talking about something that we're passionate about, you know, we kind of go in, you know?
Yes, sir.
A
Yes,
lot of,
sir.
and because we got a lot of experience, a lot of a broad network, you know, we from a lot of different angles. It's easy for us to have insider trading information on the back room of how these things really
Some of
work.
the stuff happens, right?
You know, so sometimes we can get a little deeper than we may want to get in a half hour.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Skip,
That's called
let me
added
go-
value to our listening audience. And thank you all for listening. We appreciate
Right.
your
We
support.
appreciate you always. So listen,
Yeah,
let's
I'm gonna
talk
kick it back
about
to you, Skip.
since we're talking about value, let's look at these Lakers right now.
Oh my goodness, here we go. Hey,
Hey,
let's
listen.
talk about building buildings and trades and stuff, man. I don't want to talk about the Lakers. Let's talk about EBEs and MBEs and let's talk about that.
We maybe we will next show, but listen, man. I don't remember the last time that I didn't want to see the Lakers. That I didn't like watching them on TV. That I don't know who I don't like watching TV more, them or the Knicks, because both of them are just not watch TV or can't watch TV. I mean, the Lakers, they know they don't have any shooters. They know it. And
they went and hired Patrick Beverly. What kind of GM is this?
Patrick Beverly, he don't have jumper the first either.
Dude, right now, currently, they're 24% from three-point range. Yeah, wow. 24%.
And I'm not blaming Russ, but Russ is 8%. He's like 1 for 12 from three. 8%. And the rest of the team is shooting at like 15%. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible where this team is. And the sad part about it is you're looking at this roster and you go, I don't care how much y'all play together, this is not going to get better. This is not going to get better because you don't have the pieces to make this get better. One of the things that's going to have to be done, you know, they need to do a blockbuster trade. If they're going to keep LeBron, if LeBron is untouchable, then they're going to have to get rid of Patrick Beverly. I mean, not Patrick Beverly, AD.
Anthony Davis.
They're going to have to get rid of him because they're going to have to, right now, and the Lakers are on TV so much, and I know why they're on TV. They're on TV, yes, because of their market, but because they don't want, they want every point that LeBron is making until he passes up Kareem. They want it on TV and they want it to be seen. But it's the other stuff that we don't want to see. You know, who wants to see just poor defense and poor offense? And I feel sorry for Darvin Ham. I really do, because they put him in a no-win situation. They really did. And once they make some moves and get him to a place where now the team is starting to look good, they're going to hire a different coach.
Hey,
because that's the history of the NBA.
I agree with you. But the other thing that's like even more perplexed than the Lakers team and structure and all that, someone put this together. That person is called the GM. That GM is Rob Pelinka. We're all familiar with him.
Right.
Do you know, last week they just gave him an extension?
Yep.
Last week. How does this man get an extension?
Here's the other piece. What's
Favor
the name
of the owner?
Right. What's LeBron's his friend's
Rich Paul.
Rich Paul. What's the name of his?
Clutch Sports.
You know, I think there's 7 players from Clutch Sport on the Lakers team.
Yeah.
I mean, that should be insider trading, man. That's insider trading type stuff there.
No, it goes back to our conversation earlier about if you have a culture, the culture of the NBA was if you have a joker that, let's say, has the corner of the market and you allow for it, he's probably not the first agency or player agent to have a stacked deck and being able to bring in players, or people give a wink and a nod, even though it looks like it can be a conflict of interest, insider trading, all the things that you've just described. But if the culture, which is an accepted set of behaviors in a particular area or arena or place of business, if the culture is that, then that's what the culture is. And up until recently, with the Cats losing like they've been losing, it has been able to fly up under the radar screen. I think that when they first brought LeBron in, signed this, quick little 2-year contract with the renewable renegotiation after every 2 years, the gamble was, hey, y'all, look, there is a chance that we are mortgaging our future for this immediate gratification. And there is a chance that we could suck and be hamstrung contract-wise if we roll the dice here. They rolled the dice. They got that one chip, knowing that if we don't get anything else after this for the next decade or so, we were able to get this one. Was it worth it? And that's kind of what I think they're thinking about right now, scratching their heads. Rob Pelinka, to your point, Will, I think any other GM would have been canned a season or 2 ago with this veritable disaster of what this is now. But 2, he got at least a chip. Mr. Niles like, hey, man, he's a championship GM. So we're going to go ahead and give him a little bit more rope than what we would otherwise. So they're in a precarious situation, though. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Man, let's talk about somebody else, man. I don't want to talk about the Lakers.
Listen, we'll close with this. The Pelicans of Zion Williams has a posterior hip contusion, which means he has a bruised hip. So he'll be out for a while, along with Brandon Ingram is in concussion protocol. This all happened in one game. Both of them got injured in the same game. The only thing I think about with Zion is this has been your history so far. You stay injured. Please don't turn out to be another Odom. Please don't turn out to be that guy or Sam Bowie. Please don't. Where you were the first pick and you've played maybe for the last 3 years he's been in the league.
Yeah.
You may have played 55 games.
No, he played a little more than that. He's probably got about 80 games under his belt. That season when he went to the All-Star game, he played in 61 games, averaged 27 points a game, went to the All-Star. The other season that he didn't miss entirely, I think his first season, he played about 24, 25 games. So he's got about 80, 85 games, a whole season virtually up under his belt. But you make a great point. The injuries, you don't want to have extended loss of time in your injuries throughout his career. But when he's on the court, he's been dominant. And I don't think that this injury right here is that big of a deal. He might miss 2 or 3 games. So long as it's not a horrendous knee, ankle, lower extremity injury, I think he'll be able to bounce back. And that's just chalk that up to the game.
Right. And I get that. And I understand, all of us being athletes, we know coming down on your back, a bruised hip is that's what happens. Usually it's a bruised tailbone.
Man, if you get that bruised tailbone, you in a world of trouble, man.
Oh,
if you sneeze, it hurt.
Right. And I've had it. Obviously, you've had it, Will.
Yeah.
So a bruised hip, they'll be able to get that blood back in there, and he may only lose a couple of games. But, I just, I want to see really who this young man is, and I really want him to be good. I want him to live up to his potential. But, that injury bug seems like it's just a thorn in his flesh,
Man, and the man, let me do this because we get ready to cut off. I want to get this from you guys. Give me a dark horse. Give me a dark horse for the East and a dark horse for the West, gentlemen, if you can. Dark horse, not who we think. Somebody who we don't talk about, who we think could come out of the East or the West. Cleveland.
So listen, another great show. Meet us back here, same bat time, same bat channel. For the #1 faith-based sports talk show in the entire world, into sports. Until next week, have an amazing week. Peace.
Damn.